have a slightly different take than much of what you may be hearing or seeing on cable news about the disturbing images this weekend out of Brazil. Supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro stormed the presidential offices, congressional and other federal buildings in the capital of Brazil just 2 months after his opponent, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, I don't think I got that right, Lula da Silva, was sworn in. They did it because they became convinced the election was somehow stolen. It sounds familiar, right? Even before the election, Bolsonaro was claiming that election officials who count votes in secret, they said manipulate results in the 2018 election that he lost, he said, was stolen from him. And then after this election, he never conceded. So yes, it is reminiscent of January 6th. False claims about a stolen election, followed by furious supporters storming the nation's capital in support of a candidate who lost the election. But that isn't why I'm doing this segment. What is most significant and not discussed enough is that if these elections were actually stolen, if the losing candidate actually was being sworn in, then I can understand why citizens might storm the Capitol. I can at least understand the fury. When I say stolen, I don't mean election rules that were changed leading up to the election. I don't mean news stories that would hurt or help one candidate being suppressed or amplified. I don't mean pointing fingers at the FBI because of conversations they had with social media giants leading up to the election in 2020, or with pronouncements they'd made in 2016 about Hillary Clinton or about Russian involvement. I mean literally the candidate who didn't get the most votes being officially declared the winner. If that happened, I can understand why citizens would revolt. Of course, that is not what happened in either Brazil or here. In Brazil, Lula da Silva defeated Bolsonaro, getting over 2 million more votes in a government-mandated runoff election. And both the populist and the pro-Bolsonaro part of Brazil's Congress and Brazil's armed forces have said they found no problems with the vote. Now, this is different than losers who just don't concede. Yes, neither Donald Trump nor Bolsonaro conceded, but neither did Stacey Abrams in the Georgia governor's race in 2018. But she still admitted that Brian Kemp had technically won. And it's not comparable to people who call the winner illegitimate after the fact, as those on the left, like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and even Hillary Clinton did about Donald Trump. And those on the right, like Alabama's Kay Ivey and Representative Matt Gaetz, have said about President Biden. And it's not comparable to the Democrats in 2016 and Republicans in 2020 who refused to certify elections. Now, I believe that all of them deserve to be criticized. I've condemned everyone, from Abrams to Jeffrey, Clinton to Gaetz, for their comments. But it is still very different when the candidate himself claims election fraud, meaning corruption of the votes that led to the wrong candidate being declared the winner, which is what happened, both leading up to January 6th and in Brazil. If it were true, I could kind of understand the response. It's still happening in the state of Arizona as Kari Lake continues to falsely claim she is the duly elected governor of Arizona.
The way we get it changed is we get the real governor, the duly elected governor, myself in there to work with lawmakers to change our laws, put some teeth into the laws.
So why haven't her false claims led to more of an uprising? Well, probably because even her supporters aren't buying her nonsense about an election that wasn't even that close. And that's the key. I don't think the folks who stormed the Capitol in Washington, or those in Brazil, at least the majority of them, thought they were trying to overturn an election. I'll bet the vast majority believed their leaders that the elections had been literally stolen from them. In Brazil, they believe that Bolsonaro actually got the most votes, which is why it's so important that the facts are out there and why we should support election challenges working their way through the courts, as they did for Donald Trump and Bolsonaro and are almost complete for Kari Lake. The problem for all of them is that in the end, none of them have any credible evidence to prove that fraud led to the wrong outcome. But I do have some degree of understanding for many of the folks who are revolting. If they believe their candidate actually won and was being cheated, that they were being cheated, it certainly doesn't justify what they did in any way. but it explains it to some degree and should serve as a reminder for all of us on how important it is for there to be refs in the form of the courts and for those on the both sides who've been seeking to delegitimize our judges and the courts to remember that they are playing a dangerous game. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.